The salty breeze whispered promises of adventure. The distant cries of seagulls merged with the rhythmic lapping of the river against the docked ship. 14-year-old George Washington stood at the water's edge, his heart pounding with anticipation. "I should like to be a sailor," he had said many times before, envisioning himself navigating the vast, uncharted seas. He had dreamt of strange lands, towering waves, and the thrill of a storm raging against his ship. And perhaps one day he would command a vessel of his own, a name whispered in the wind, a legend among seafarers. His brothers had encouraged it. They saw greatness in him, even as a boy. "He will not stay a common sailor for long," they assured their mother. "A boy like George is meant to rise, to be a captain, maybe even an admiral one day." It was settled. The ship was ready. The trading vessel bound for England had agreed to take young George under its wing, to teach him the ways of the sea. His small wooden chest was packed, clothes neatly folded, a few personal trinkets tucked inside. Everything was in place, except his mother's heart. She had begged him to stay. She had pleaded with tear-filled eyes, the kind that haunt a child, even when they try to be strong. A letter from his uncle had only strengthened her argument. "Do not let him go to sea. If he begins as a common sailor, he will never be anything else." But George had already made up his mind. He was determined. He was ready. Now, standing at the riverbank, he took in the scene before him. The ship, the boat ready to take him aboard, the water stretching endlessly beyond. His fingers tightened into fists, gripping the moment like a rope in a storm. He turned back toward the house one final time, and there she was. His mother stood in the doorway, framed by the dim morning light, her hands trembling at her sides. Tears streamed down her face, silent yet louder than any storm George could ever face at sea. He felt something then, something deeper than the call of adventure. A heaviness in his chest, a tightness in his throat. This was not just her sorrow. It was a weight, a choice heavier than any anchor. In an instant, the wind no longer smelled of adventure but of loss. The sea, once an inviting mystery, now seemed like a dark abyss. And the ship, his ticket to a grand new life, suddenly felt like a door closing on the one he already had. A deep breath, a heartbeat's hesitation, then decision. His voice broke the stillness. "Mother, I have changed my mind. I will stay." A flicker of shock crossed her face before relief flooded her features. Then with urgency he called out, "Tom, run down to the shore and tell them not to put my chest in the boat. Send word to the captain. Tell him I am not coming." His mother let out a sob, one of joy, of gratitude, of a future reclaimed. She reached for him, pulling him into her arms, holding on to him as if she had saved him from a storm far greater than any the sea could offer. And maybe, just maybe, she had. For who has not heard of George Washington? Not as a sailor, not as a captain, not as an admiral, but as the man who would one day lead a nation. The boy who almost left, but stayed. The choice that changed history.